Robinson Treaty may refer to one of two treaties signed between the Ojibwa chiefs and the Crown in 1850. The first treaty involved Ojibwa chiefs along the north shore of Lake Superior. The second treaty, signed 2 days later, also included Ojibwa chiefs from along the eastern and northern shores of Lake Huron. The Wikwemikong First Nation did not sign either treaty, and the land is considered unceded. The Saugeen Surrenders of 1854 and the Pennyfather Treaty of 1859 altered the original treaties. Robinson Superior Treaty. The Robinson Treaty for the Lake Superior region, commonly called Robinson Superior Treaty, was entered into agreement on September 7, 1850, at Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, between Ojibwa chiefs inhabiting the northern shore of Lake Superior from Pigeon River to Batchewana Bay, and the Crown, represented by a delegation headed by William Benjamin Robinson. It is registered as the Crown Treaty No. 60. Robinson-Huron Treaty. The first Robinson Treaty for the Lake Huron region, commonly called Robinson-Huron Treaty, was entered into agreement on September 9, 1850, at Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, between Ojibwa chiefs inhabiting the northern shore of Lake Superior from Batchewana Bay to Sault Ste. Marie, and the Ojibwa chiefs inhabiting the eastern and northern shores of Lake Huron from Sault Ste. Marie to Penetanguishna, and the Crown, represented by a delegation headed by William Benjamin Robinson. It is registered as the Crown Treaty No. 61. These principal men, on behalf of the respective tribes or bands, voluntarily surrendered, ceded, granted, and convey unto Her Majesty, her heirs and successors forever, all the right, title, and interest to, and in the whole of, the territory above described, together with the islands in the said lakes, opposite to the shores thereof, and inland to the height of land which separates the territory covered by the Charter of the Honourable Hudson Bay Company from Canada, as well as all unconceded lands within the limits of Canada west to which they have any just claim, of the other part, save and except for the reservations set forth in the schedule. The bands were given a one-time payment of 2,160 liras distributed amongst themselves, and an annual payment of 600 liras to each band. The schedule of reservations created as a result of the Robinson-Huron Treaty and signed by the subscribing chiefs and principal men are as follows. First, Pamaquona Ashkung and his band, a tract of land to commence 7 miles from the mouth of the river Magnetawam, and extending 6 miles east and west by 3 miles north. Second, Wikwemikong and his band, a tract of land to commence at a place called Nikikshigeshing, 6 miles from east to west by 3 miles in depth. Third, Kitchepaskasegan, from Point Gromden westward, 6 miles inland, by 2 miles in front, so as to include the small Lake Nesnasung, a tract for themselves and the bands. Fourth, Wabakekik, 3 miles front, near Shabawananning, by 5 miles inland, for himself and band. Fifth, Namasan and Na-Okwigabo and the bands, a tract of land commencing near Kaklosh, at the Hudson Bay Company's boundary, thence westerly to the mouth of Spanish River, then 4 miles up the south bank of said river, and across to the place of beginning. Sixth, Shawanakashik and his band, a tract of land now occupied by them, and contained between 2 rivers, called Whitefish River and Wanabetazik, 7 miles inland. Seventh, Wind Orchagawinini and his band, the peninsula east of Serpent River, and formed by it, now occupied by them. Eighth, Pony Kirsch and his band, the land contained between the river Mississauga and the river Pennybuabekong, up to the first rapids. Ninth, Dokis and his band, 3 miles square at Wanabeakokown, near Lake Nipissing and the island near the fall of Okakandort. 10th, Shabakashik and his band, band, from the present planting grounds on Lake Nipissing to the Hudson Bay Company's post, 6 miles in depth. 11th, Tagawinini and his band, 2 miles square at Wanabitibing, a place about 40 miles inland, near Lake Nipissing. 12th, Kyokos and his band, 4 miles front from Thessalon River eastward, by 4 miles inland. 13th, Wikwemikong and his band, 2 miles on the lakeshore east and west of Ogawamanam, by 1 mile inland. 14th, Vashinkwick House and his band, a tract of land extending from Maskononge Bay, inclusive, to Partridge Point, above Garden River on the front, and inland 10 miles, throughout the whole distance, and also Squirrel Island. 15th, Fanebonai Gotching and his band, a tract of land extending from Wanabikanianung west of Gross Cap to the boundary of the land ceded by the chiefs of Lake Superior, and inland 10 miles throughout the whole distance, including Batchewanong Bay, and also the small island at Sault Ste. Marie used by them as a fishing station. 16th, for Chief Mekus and his band, residing at Wasakosing, a tract of land at a place on the main shore opposite the island, being the place now occupied by them for residence and cultivation. 4 miles square. 17th, for Chief Mukatamashiket and his band, a tract of land on the east side of the river Nishkontiong, near Point O'Barrels, 3 miles square, and also a small tract in Washawanega Bay, now occupied by a part of the band, 3 miles square. Saugeen surrenders. The Second Robinson Treaty for the Lake Huron region, commonly called Surrender of the Saugeen Peninsula or Saugeen Surrenders, was entered into agreement on October 13, 1854, at Saugeen between Ojibwa chiefs inhabiting the Saugeen Peninsula, led by Chief Wabadik, and the Crown, represented by delegation headed by Lawrence Oliphant. It is registered as the Crown Treaty No. 72. Though not negotiated by William Benjamin Robinson, thus not a Robinson Treaty, it is commonly included with them. The Chippewas of Saugeen Ojibwa territory initially refused to relinquish entitlement of the Saugeen and Owen Sound Indian Reserve, and negotiations for this land became increasingly difficult for the British government. In the end, the British government threatened that if the Ojibwa did not agree, the Crown would be unable to guarantee protection from the European settlers moving into the area. After tense negotiations, the Ojibwa reluctantly agreed to surrender the reserve in exchange for the interest on the principal sum arising out of the sale of the land. 5 smaller reserves were to be set aside in perpetuity: Saugeen Tract, Chiefs Point, Owen Sound, Cape Croker, Colpoyes Bay. The lands have been distributed to the Chippewas successor First Nations as follows. Pennyfather Treaty. The Pennyfather Treaty was signed on the 9th of June 1859 at Gross Cap between the chiefs and warriors of Batchewanani Bay and Gules Bay Band of Indians, and the Crown. The chiefs and warriors agreed to relinquish to the Crown the reserved land set aside in the Robinson Treaty, save for Whitefish Island. The Crown, in return, would sell the land, and all interest accrued from the sale of the land would be distributed to band members annually. Each family could receive 40 acres of land on the Garden River Reserve, and may purchase 80 acres of the land being sold at the selling price. The bands were also given $1,200 divided amongst themselves, and all improvements to the lands being sold could be compensated after survey. List of Robinson Treaty First Nations. Anambiguzajigananishnaabik First Nation, Atikamikshanganaishnaabik First Nation, Batchwana First Nation of Ojibwas, Bianjitiwabik Zajiganishnaabek First Nation, Bingwinayarshianishnaabik First Nation, Dokis First Nation, Fort William First Nation, Garden River First Nation, Gull Bay First Nation, Henvey Inlet First Nation, Long Lake 58 First Nation, Magnetawan First Nation, Michipicoten First Nation, Mississauga First Nation, Chippewash of Nwash Unceded First Nation, Nipissing First Nation, Paisplat First Nation, Pikmobit First Nation, Ojibwas of the Pig River First Nation, Red Rock Indian Band, Sagamokanash First Nation, Saugeen First Nation, Serpent River First Nation, Shawanaga First Nation, Sheshegwening First Nation, Temagami First Nation, Thessalon First Nation, Wanapitai First Nation, Wasauksing First Nation, Whitefish River First Nation.